showtime. So hello for anyone who was excited to see Enzo Lombard coming on this evening.
All 12 of them.
All 12.
That are excited.
So how are all 12? You'll have much more than that. People love you. So how's the weather there in the lovely right now you're in Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How's Louisiana?
Balls hot. Yeah. Like right out there is the deck, and then over the back fence is the Mississippi River. So there's supposed to be a breeze, but I don't know. My ass has been in California for like 30 years. Well, you have humidity in Maryland. You've never lived anywhere without like lived. I know you've been places, but
right. Yes,
there's humidity in Oklahoma or where?
There can be. Depends on what part. I lived in the southeast where it was hot. Because you're so close to Arkansas, it is pretty humid in that portion of Oklahoma in comparison to western Oklahoma, where there's a more dry heat. But yes.
Yeah. San Francisco doesn't really have a summer, so then you get used to that. And so here, it's beautiful in the winter, but when it creeps into this time, this would normally be when we would be going back to California. But because of COVID, and then I live in the Tenderloin. I live in what'd you say?
Damn COVID.
Oh yeah. Because we live in the Tenderloin, and it's a bad part of the city's handling it very well, but that neighborhood is really bad. And there's businesses here and stuff like that we want to kind of keep an eye on. So so we're here.
So I guess first of all, I would like to thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I've been so excited. I heard about this show last year, and then I don't, was it called The Hollar last year?
Well, it was when I was working on it on the show where I was getting ready to pitch it to a live show to Netflix to do the things on the Fringe.
Okay.
So then I decided, you know what? I'm just going to do it on The Hollar instead. And here we are.
That's great. Did The Hollar exist before? I'm going to start interviewing you.
Okay, go ahead. So The Hollar has been actually Donna Sue Roberts. She actually started The Hollar I think more than a year and a half, almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
It started with a small, quaint little sound or music room. I'm trying to think of what we call that right now. Okay. I'm going blank. I'm not used to being in
it. Sounds more. I'm sorry. It sounds more musical, and that's what I thought you were doing when I saw the really big show you did.
Okay. Oh yeah. So the show was going to be in all areas of entertainment, and we're still doing that because The Hollar is an entertainment company.
Okay.
But it did start out with musical origins, and so we're just going to keep going. We're going to add probably a comedy, but building slow since everything happened, since the COVID thing. Things didn't go quite into full blown as we had expected. So taking my show away from pitch status for Netflix and then putting it into production for myself, it seems to take. It's kind of transitioning into I'm going to say the venue space. We didn't, we had venues. And so this is going to kind of, for right now, while we can't do that, we'll be doing this show. And then
I totally stepped on your interview. I'm so sorry, but I just saw it. I thought it was cute. I heard about it. I'm happy for you. And
thank
this
you.
is the fifth show?
Yes, somewhere like fifth or sixth.
That's great. But okay, I'm gonna let you lead.
Hey, I thank you.
No, not controlling.
You're fine. This is what I love about you. We can have a lot of fun. So first of all, I'd like to talk about Louisiana Fairy Tales, which there's 5 seasons.
Yes.
And you got 1 season out.
I do.
And then season 2 is expected to be out in the summer sometime, right?
Yes, I'm probably going to do an ebook with it because we're talking about doing. Do you remember the books that they used to have that had 2 volumes, and it was the front of the book and you flipped it over upside down and there was another? David would love to design something like that, but when you go to press, it's really, really expensive. So we're kind of toying around with how to do it, But the book is really pretty. And
Yes, it is.
you thought to have a copy of it. I was like,
no, I actually
really
have
would have
it
thought
here.
to do it.
It wasn't just thinking to have a copy. I actually, and I'd like to tell everybody that I have
That's right. You bought multiple copies, didn't you?
Yes, because some little people in my home ran off with it.
Right.
They're like, what is this? I don't know that it's the most appropriate for them, but they enjoyed it wildly.
Louisiana Fairy Tales is a classic song that's been recorded by too many people to really ascribe it to any particular person. But I had done a play 10 years ago that ran in San Francisco for a couple of years. It ran here at like a Fringe, and then it ran at a Fringe off Broadway in the summers of like 2009 and 2010. Got some awards. It was nice. But I was starting to think about what do I want to do after that. And in the middle of it, we came to visit. Can you turn that off?
It's okay.
That's all right.
The kids will scream here. Don't worry. Just
Don't worry. In the middle of that, we came to visit David's mom, David's mom has had multiple sclerosis since he was under 10. And that was a big defining transition in his life. That was when his parents split up, and he took over a lot of her caretaking. And it's a lot of what made me love him was that part of his background. So we came here. She was not in New Orleans. She had a marriage go funny, and her sister, who later became her caretaker, was living out in Cajun country out by the Texas border. And she had a heart attack, her sister / caretaker, and she went into nursing care really fast. And at this point, she's had MS for 40 years or something. So she had advanced to being almost entirely paralyzed, completely blind. And the nursing home system was not really designed for somebody with those disabilities. So she clearly was going to need to have more care than what a place could provide. And then it became, how are we going to live out in the middle of nowhere and do so? The first challenge became, where are we going to bring her? We can't bring her to California. And so it was basically between Houston and New Orleans. And I was like, well, there's no contest there. I would definitely.
Yeah, because, my husband says Houston's the armpit of America.
Does he?
And he can say that because he's a San Antonio boy.
I know many Houstonians that I love. I think there's a lot to love about it. I haven't actually spent a lot of time, but they say that our summers are hot and they're so that gives you an idea. We're usually not here July, August, September, those months, because David's a native San Diegan. I grew up. I'm originally from Baltimore. I grew up in Michigan. Michigan's sort of humid, but not that bad. But Baltimore is really this weather, just about 20 to 30 degrees cooler, and not as many tornadoes. And or hurricanes, rather. And so I still feel like I have that piece in me that can adapt to the weather. Well, it was a big change. David never lived outside of California. He traveled a lot with me. I've lived all over the world, and we had traveled, so he was able to travel. But I mean, he was a California boy, and he had no reason to ever leave. So we really quickly had to pick up and take over nursing care for somebody disabled. David led on a lot of that because he had cared for her many years earlier when she was a lot more capable. But what happened was I was trying to stay in touch with everybody because I was performing a lot, and I just disappeared for a really long time. And I was originally trying to do Facebook posts that would only share to the family. And what I wound up doing was only excluding the family and sending it to everybody else. I was amazed.
I've done that before.
Have you?
Put dirty messages to my husband.
Fabulous.
Blocked him.
I was trying to do that. I was amazed that people were interested. And people were really interested. And
I was one of them.
I know. Yeah. And I mean, we may have met around that because that was in the sort of Monsterberg days that,
yes.
that I was doing that at the end of that. So that became, it started to be like, okay, I'll have a little script to have a sequel to Love, Humiliation, Karaoke. Damaged Goods is what it's been retitled. I wanted to start with that, but then it became too much material for the stage. And so I was like, we'll just keep this as a book. And I was writing it kind of Tales of the City style. I was starting them as updates, and then it sort of evolved into episodes. And now it's been going for about 10 years, and I'm just trying to catch up in the writing.
And a lot of people, that's kind of how it goes. You know, you're going back through and you're like, you've got it all down, but you got to go back and fill things out because you're the one who lived it, and you'll leave little gaps for people, or, you know, if you don't watch yourself. So I totally get it. So kind of tell me about life in the French Quarter.
Life in the French Quarter? I don't live in the French Quarter.
Oh, you don't?
No. I live in Uptown New Orleans. I live.
I thought you did. Oh my God, you got property.
Oh yes,
That's
one of the guest houses is in the
Sorry.
No, don't worry about it. We live in an area called Uptown New Orleans. The way New Orleans works is it's a sort of crescent-y kind of thing, and so we're on the river. The French Quarter is about 3-4 miles that way. And the French Quarter is what the French Quarter is. There's absolutely people that live there. I certainly have friends that live there. It's probably the part that's getting the hardest hit right now because it's sort of barely equipped for cars, you know, because of the age of the city. The property that we have is just outside of the quarter, literally like just outside of the quarter, like 4 blocks north of Bourbon Street. So that's more over in that area. So let me start with your question, since I don't live in the French Quarter. How do you want to rephrase it? Where were you getting at? Or what do I? Yeah.
So how about this? What is it like owning property?
Well, I was never a is that you dinging, or is that me?
Actually, it's James Lee Nathan. He's like, I can't see the phone dropped.
Oh, no. Okay. Hey, James. Hey, Boo.
He's trying to get it going right now. He's like, what's going on? He's like, we ran off. I got tired of it.
I was thinking, am I doing something wrong with my computer? No. So what's owning property? I was never a property owner. David's parents were lifelong renters. So this is really, really, really new. It started because at the time, what had happened is the financial crash was in 2008. This was 2010. Katrina was in 2005. So New Orleans was just coming back, and you could buy what's called a double, which is you just call it a duplex someplace else. And there was a renter in the place, and it basically covered the mortgage. So it was sort of, once you spent all of 10 years of life savings on the down payment, which was mortifying, to a place I'd never even been here or had been anywhere in the Deep South like 6 weeks earlier. So it was a big ass leap.
Yeah.
But I was like, if we do this, I'm going to go down in fucking flames, taking care of my mother-in-law, because I don't have a relationship with my biological mother, and so and a lot of, like I say, a lot of what made David what I love so much about him is was her disability. I mean, it was a very positive thing for him, despite the fact that it presented a lot of challenges. I went from being a renter in San Francisco, where, we could have saved for 20 years and I would probably afford a half bath, we went right to being landlords. And then from being landlords to, some investors were following the series and started to ask questions. And before you know it, I was running 6 properties altogether, guest houses, a combination of guest houses and rental properties. So,
they're lovely too, by the way. They're lovely.
Thank you. You
tell the designer to Shinda.
What's that?
Do you do the design, or does Shinda?
No, my husband David Quintero is a graphic designer, and I'm on Facebook as Enzo Lombard. There's some albums in there, but if you actually go to the Greek house renovation, that was a Katrina house that literally you couldn't call it a crack house because the crack people were like, okay, this is too sketchy. I'm not doing crack here. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. There were weeds lifting the roof off of the house.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was horrible. It was pretty much a teardown, and it was in historic district. So they literally told you the windows had to be like the way they should have been, like not the really super cheap, energy efficient windows, like the shitty old, super, super expensive, 10 times more than the regular windows. That's how the historic district did it. And David literally did all the renderings, and we moved kitchen. We gutted it down to the studs, and yeah, that design job was amazing, and I wouldn't have been able to begin it, without him.
Well,
but we have drawings of the renderings, and it's amazing how much it looked like the end product. So we went from, I remember going to, this is silly to say, I remember going to an IKEA when we were kind of realizing, okay, San Francisco's always going to get more expensive faster than we can save money. And I would go to an IKEA and be like, we'll never be, you'd see the kitchens. I mean, you can always get a little, futon or whatever, but like to actually do up a house.
Right.
We're never going to be able to do this. And I remember, and David was like, how can you even say that? And I was like, that's where my head was. And it's amazing because, I don't even go near an IKEA for anything anymore. Well, IKEA has also changed over the years. But we've designed so much stuff now. So that was a blessing. That was really a blessing, taking care of her. And I didn't do it at all neither of us did, with any thought of it being an opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, because of the person David's mother is, I remember thinking, we better make this fun, and we better do more than just take care of her, because she's not going to like feeling like a burden. And I don't want her to, not stick around as long because of that. Because she might, all we could really do because of her disability is she had 5-star everything, because I was like, look, I can't take her to Disney World, we can't take her on a cruise, but she ate the best food forever. But that turned out to be something that people were interested in that I wouldn't have anticipated.
Yeah, that's something that I started. So all of my interests have been in a lot of your entertainment, but then you guys started doing the housing, and I was like, wait a minute, I like that. I really like that. So that was so neat. Yeah, I always wondered who did the interior design. David again?
David? Yeah, I can't take credit for most of it. I do have
to put David on. I'm teasing you.
I have a couple ideas. David loves media and loves attention. I'm so not serious. Yeah, that was really all David. And then more recently, the design has been Shinda, or definitely the staging for the photo shoots of the new property. That's been Shinda. I like to let other people shine,
Right.
I prefer it be about me like 98% of the time, but I'm very generous with the other two.
So can we talk a little bit about Shinda? Because Shinda is usually the subject of many of your posts and so much of your fun. And it's because she's this vibrant, powerful Black woman. And so can you kind of talk about her?
I'm thrilled that I encapsulated her so well, because I wrote about her for years. When I write about people, I try to give them a pseudonym, just because then I can feel more comfortable about talking about things without running everything by them. But Shinda is like the only and the absolute perfect name for Shinda. So I think I did talk. I certainly asked her once before I ever started using her name. And then she got on Facebook later, and then I was like, oh, wow, now she's actually reading what I'm writing. And it was funny. But the way Shinda happened was when when we were taking care of mom, well, the regimen for mom is we still live in the Bay Area. So my original situation was my job was letting me, I was there 6 weeks and here 6 weeks. And David and I, despite having very separate lives, we are up each other's asses like two lesbians on a third date. And we just spend time together very well. We're really not the type to be like, okay, I'll see you in a month when I come back from, we're not like that. But again, we don't do things all, he's doing other things. We keep different hours, we work different hours and things like that. But anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, right. We were taking care, we were flying back and forth for years. Mm-hmm. And so when Mama passed, we were like, okay, let's travel. And then I was like, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep the business? Are we going to keep doing this? Or how long are we going to go back and forth? And that's when we started to think about having a cleaner that did a little more kind of management stuff, but not to the degree that she eventually did. But initially, someone said, oh, I know a cleaner that does vacation rentals. Vacation rentals were very new. Like Airbnb, they either existed or that was like where you had a couch that you crashed in your house. I mean, it wasn't full property stuff.
It's time for random comments to pop up.
I didn't realize those. Come on. So where was I?
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm under this pressure, buddy.
Randy and Sandy. Okay, I was gonna say. Okay. So I just lost what was I saying? Oh, Shinda. Right. Okay. So we had a friend who said, oh, I have a great cleaner for you. He had cleaned our house. Okay, my husband is Mexican and he has given housekeepers night terrors. And his whole family is like that. We keep things clean. We were at a vacation rental in San Diego once. They started taking apart the oven so that they could dust in the little slots. And, they're very clean people. Mm-hmm. So this person that recommended Shinda had done the worst cleaning job I'd ever seen in my life. Oh, no. We came here when my show was running off Broadway. We came here in August. David's never been in this climate ever in his whole life.
Right.
And, yay, I can't wait for the second book either. Thank you. And so we came down here and we came into a dirty house and we don't own anything. So, I mean, we literally came into like an air mattress and some sheets.
I've had to do that before myself.
Right. So he's
we'll come back to that one.
Okay. So the point is, the person that did the worst cleaning job in the world is the person that referred Shinda. And so I was like, okay, well, if anyone else had referred her to me, I'll want to meet her. But I kind of don't. But out of respect, I don't want to waste this person's time that I don't think is going to do it. So I remembered, she wasn't persistent either, and I just remember thinking, okay, well, let me meet her, who knows? And she showed up. She showed up right here. And she screamed star, and I remembered thinking, okay, she can't be doing the cleaning herself. She's running it. She's running a thing. She's single mom, running her shit. And I thought, great, you know what? I'll probably have her for 6 months, but she's certainly capable. And that grew into later, after Mama passed, and we were like, okay, do we want to live somewhere else? Like, what do we want to do with what do we want to do? We're never going to own a house in San Francisco. What are we going to do? And we went and lived in Italy for a little bit to try that, because I lived in Europe when I was younger, and I wanted to sort of know, I wanted to live there long enough to see, like, do I really need to scratch that itch again? Mm-hmm. And we need to turn the business over to somebody, which is always the idea when you're growing a business, that you can actually step back.
Right. You get big enough where you get to reap the benefits of all that work.
So, right. So that's when things really took off for her and for us. And she did well. And then we started building a team. And I have a couple of different single moms. Hey, Jackie. oh my God, Jackie Rowe is from Michigan. It's not a lot of people that go back. I lived overseas for about 6 years. And when you do that and then you don't go back to the same place you were before, people that go back that far, like family, you must have this. If you have the people that go back to actual high school and whatever, and you may or may not have, the kind of connections. I don't have a lot of long connections. So Shinda is a legend. She's great. And she has a good mouth.
James.
On her.
Oh, whoops, wrong one. Shinda is Shinda.
But anyway, obviously this is hitting that part of the business really, really hard. But Shinda's got more things. Shinda's got all kinds of gigs. Shinda's a designer. Shinda makes furniture. She makes gorgeous hats. She made, we have throws for the Mardi Gras parades, or those little kind of trinkets. She made beautiful little miniature purses that you sell. She's going to have a cable network someday. And all I've said is, don't leave me without finding somebody really good to replace you.
Right. You'll never be able to replace her, unfortunately. But maybe she can find someone with their own bold personality.
I mean, the personality isn't really what, that's a great part of the management part of her. And that's what I think she's going to be. I think she's going to start being a business builder. That's what I've always seen in her.
As, yeah.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. That's so sweet. A friend, David Hawkins, I don't know if you know him. He was in Munsterberg as well. And he really was good about promoting the book. So many people were so supportive when I wrote it. And I don't know I know Tales of the City was serialized like that and wasn't a book and became a book later. But a lot of the way people responded to what I wrote drove the way I decided to write about it, because I don't think I would have. So in a weird way, it's a little bit collaborative in that, the feedback gave me a lot more courage to go into places that I might have been, worried about going into otherwise.
Right. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put up this really big comment.
Wow.
It shows off our lives, Enzo.
That's so sweet. Sandy and Randy have been wonderful. They referred me to, all of the sales I've had in Australia are because of them and their connections there. And they live not too far in Mississippi. But oh my God, Lori Colburn and Jackie, these are both people that go back to Michigan, which is, I was out of there by the time I was 16. So the thing, if I haven't said already, is I was born in Baltimore, huge Sicilian family.
I have something for that.
Okay, good. And then I moved to Michigan when I was 5, and I lived in. There were two parts. There was the black part of town, and there was the white part of town. I was in the black part of the town from kindergarten till 6th grade, and then I moved to the white part of town in 6th grade until I graduated early at the end of 10th, 11th grade, depending on how you look at it. I did live in Florida for 9th grade, but apart from that, that's where I was. And then I was briefly in university before I went to England and lived in London for 5 years. And so that was a break. And I've never been back to Michigan from that time.
Wow.
So yeah. Actually, Lori Colburn, who was just on, so we know each other in Saginaw, Michigan. We don't meet. And weirdly, she is on a business trip to London that overlaps the same 3 days of our honeymoon, which was like a month. And we just happened to be in London at the same day. But it was so cool to meet somebody from Saginaw, Michigan that you haven't seen all these years and have a reunion and, to have a reunion overseas. That was magic.
Overseas would be magic. Do it here, whatever, but overseas.
From the middle of nowhere. It's not like meeting somebody from Manhattan in London. It's like somebody from where you grew up. But
that is really awesome. And so you've got a couple people. That's good from there. If you don't mind me asking, can I ask about the time? Because I know some things you got to be careful as far as like non-disclosure type. But earlier,
I'm so not an NDA person.
I know they're too hard.
Right.
So in the earlier times in your life when you and your mom and was it other siblings as well that went out and sang, and then you and your mom actually sang with Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn at one point. Some of my people like from the Hollar.
That's sort of, but let me explain that to you.
Okay.
Which is when we moved from Baltimore to Michigan, my mother had already established herself as a stage mother, and I don't know why. She really was the one that wanted to be the singer. I was interested in writing more than singing, but I sing well. I mean, I was, that's just a gift. It wasn't anything I did. It's nothing I worked for. Thank you. My writing does not suck. Thank you. I need to go to sleep to that. That's very sweet, James. What was I saying? So
wait, I gotta do this.
What?
I have to throw this stuff up there as you're trying to say it.
No. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I was singing, and what we wound up doing is we were on a circuit. So the big national names like Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton had just split up from Porter Wagner at that point. They were doing the fairs. And so they would call us all Nashville Talent. I've never even been to Nashville in my life. But what happens is that stage needs to be full of people from 10 o'clock in the morning when they show up. Mm-hmm. And then Dolly and them would be there at 8 o'clock. So I didn't do like a duet with Dolly, and I mean, I probably saw her a couple of times over the period of time. You really remembered seeing her, and that wouldn't surprise anybody nowadays, but I mean, and I've known people that work with her, and she's just phenomenal. We had a connection to Loretta Lynn, but to the audience, we were all these big stars, which of course my mother totally played into. But I remember we would have to sign paper plates, autographed paper plates for kids after they came off stage. And I'm like 9 in like a blue velour suit with my mother had done, remember the glitter that was in a tube?
Uh-huh.
She had a big L. That was before Laverne and Shirley. Penny Marshall stole my fucking shit. Because that big L was me. I had that. And then olive fringe, because with navy blue velour, like what other color would you do? And then she rhinestoned and studded it to death, and it would scratch, because I'm hairy. I'm a Sicilian guy. So it's like I'd have all these rhinestones everywhere in this velour, and you wear nothing underneath it, because I have fur now, but I didn't then. That was the look. Well, thank you, Lori. Lori's got a fantastic, she's probably one of the top 10 altos in the United States, or at least that I've heard. Love her voice. Anyway,
that was
a lot coming at me. So, what? Oh, okay. So that was really it. Is that we would fly in those little private planes, which sort of sounds glamorous, but it's like the one that Patsy Cline crashed in, like a little Cessna, like claustrophobia kind of thing. I remember I threw up once. I threw up and it went on the ceiling and then came down the side because we had like one of those drops. But it was something to do when I was 9.
It's one of those things where you pray when you can feel it first taking off. You're like, this is it. This is the last time for me, buddy. This is it. And then you actually make it and you're like, oh, I lived. I'm not going to be like a Buddy Holly story. Okay, got this. Wait a damn minute. MJ has makeup on for Enzo, but didn't wear any for me.
I thought he was saying Enzo's wearing makeup, and I was like, yeah, thanks, bitch. No, this shine is all me from the Mediterranean. Like there's no way to dull this shine.
Enzo could do this all day, all life. Okay, so I'm going to take this other banner down here because I think he's got plenty of props. You don't want to let this go to his head. Okay. So kind of segueing in from we talked about Louisiana fairy tales. And then, so can we talk more about your damaged goods?
Damaged Goods is was titled Love Humiliation Karaoke. That'll probably be the way a lot of people know it.
That's what
and that is I'm actually going to do a Facebook Live version of that, because that'll be something we'll talk about later. Yeah, it was episodes. I was working with W. Kamau Bell, who later went on to win 2 Emmys, I think, possibly even 3. For the series on CNN. But at the time, he was teaching solo shows, which are basically one-man plays. So he has a great, there's a lot of people in that. That was like my groundlings. I'm still close friends with a lot of them. A lot of those people went on to write for Real Time and for John Oliver and for, a lot of things that you would have heard of. They moved to LA and did that whole thing. And it was a great community, but he's a terrific director. And as much as people think of him as a cop, he is all those things. But I think there's so much more to come out of W. Kamau Bell than what we've seen so far. Although he interviewed Oprah, it's like, he's not sitting on his ass, and he never was, and nothing has changed about him at all. He's still exact. He dresses the same. He never calls you back. He's the same. Nobody can ever say fame changed him, because I was like, you never called me fucking back, when you were nobody. So anyway, wonderful, wonderfully supported a big body of these one-man plays. And so what I wrote was I was inspired by the format of songs, not hit songs, but those one-hit wonder songs. When you hear them on the radio, they'll take you back to a specific point in time in your life. And I remember thinking, that's one of the power of those one-hit wonder type of songs, because you hear the Beatles, and that reminds you of all different things that happen all throughout your life. Right. But those things, and so I liked the idea of creating songs that trigger flashbacks. And the big question about Love Humiliation Karaoke or Damaged Goods was, how do you believe in something that you have no proof in your life even exists? And the parallel I use to that is when you go to karaoke, everybody kind of goes there with that dream of having that Susan Boyle moment. Susan Boyle hadn't happened at that time yet, but it was good to have it later. But that thing where you get on stage and suddenly it's in every movie, you know what I mean? Somebody that can't, they can't sing at all. And then, in the middle of it, they suddenly know how to dance. And then you get up and somebody else takes over the piano, like in The Parent Trap. It was the belief in that magic. And yet it happens so rarely, but people still come back. So the question is that beautiful or is that pathetic? And depending on your worldview, and then David and I both had pretty negative views about marriage based on the experiences with our family, and how you go through that. And it explains about 2 damaged people that want to believe and just can't. And a lot of people reacted really strongly to that. It's funny. I thought it was going to have more gay topic because I'm HIV positive. That's not really central to the story, but that was part of it. I'm positive, he's not. That was one of the number of things that kind of made it an impossible thing for us to ever get together. And it didn't draw a gay audience in particular. I had straight men and women. Yeah, what'd you say?
I would have thought that also. And I thought, for instance, I was very interested.
Right.
And because I'm not gay. And so, right. I want to know more about this. And the topic that, what, like you told us it was going to be, was about this. I'm like, well, hell yeah, that's going to give me some insight and I need it. You know
what it is? It's about people with fucked up families, and it turned out for whatever reason, the guys that were coming 6, 8 times were straight guys. And I remember thinking, it's not real sexual, but I remember thinking that's really, and I sort of gradually, you get to know the people on Facebook and things like that. And what I found out is they had, really challenging mother situations, which mine was a disaster, but it happened a long time ago. So
here's another one. Ready?
Okay. It's actually one of the episodes of the show. It's episode 2. I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute. That's so embarrassing to say, but I don't know if I've talked to you about this or not, but like, let's not call it psychic. Let's call it gut instinct. Yeah. Men generally, women have that intuition. Black people have that intuition. The world is not set up for you to do well in. So you need to learn how to read a room. You need to learn how to react. You just need to deal with shit that other people don't deal with. And so I feel like you kind of have an advantage at the gut instinct because you require it. As a white guy, I mean, even as a gay guy, I'm extremely rugged and masculine, which I'm sure that all of the people that listening are probably noticing to themselves. I'm joking. Anyway, no, but what I'm saying, I wasn't a drag queen, and I was raised by drag queens in London. I mean, when every room you walk into, somebody knows you're different. That's a different story. And I didn't really have to deal with that. So I wanted to develop my sense of intuition. And so I make fun of the Berkeley Psychic Institute, but one of the things is it said, react to a gut instinct. And one of them was that I had run an AOL classified personal ad when that was a thing. And I thought David was great, but I had lists. He was HIV negative and I was positive. And I was like, why would you even think about at that time? It was just like, that was different. And also he lived in another city. He was planning to move to San Francisco. He was about to graduate. And I was like, why are you, but you never hear anything good about dating somebody in another city. I never hear anything good about a long distance relationship. So that was another thing. There were a bunch of things, but when I was kind of, massaging my temples, trying to do my exercise so that I could go in and say I did something intuitive, I thought, let me go meet this guy. Like, I'm going to get in a car and meet him today. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that'll make such a great story. Right. I don't think I was thinking about a relationship. I do remember thinking, oh my God, if we got together, that would be like, we would have the best coffee table story ever. But, I dated an Eskimo for the same reason. I thought, if we ever got together, we'd have the greatest story. I dated because I'd never dated an Eskimo. So, you don't say Eskimo anymore, but I mean, that you did at that time.
I don't know what you say.
It's a type of Native American, and my mind is blanking out.
I really didn't know that.
What's that?
I'm not to be an idiot, but I really didn't know that yet. I didn't get the memo. Somebody has to tell me. Okay, from now on, Enzo, it's your responsibility because I'll go on like an idiot and say things, Eskimo, and stuff like that. Thank you. Okay, so
we met, and I loved him, and I don't know is that. That's not somebody I know, but I've heard about raisins in the potato salad. That's a white person thing, apparently. Do white people really do that? I think it's been written and recycled on a bunch of different TV shows. I've never heard of it, and I know some white trash. I mean, I'm white trash. I'm white trash adjacent.
Yeah.
I lived in a trailer park. I lived in not even a trailer park. I lived in a Yogi Bear trailer park. Like, not even a trailer that's a trailer, like a trailer that you go on vacation in. I lived in one. And we were kind of a nice school district. That's, I think, why we picked it. And every day you had to pick me up at the bus stop in front of like a 2-story tall thing of Yogi Bear with like his hand out. I don't know why he had his hand out. And everybody laughed. And that was super adjacent. Everybody laughed. And then also, so because we were the last stop before school, that meant we were the first stop when everybody knew the trash that lived in the trailer park. And then to make it worse, on the school records, my address was 71 Boo Boo Boulevard. And I mean,
I died.
They're horrible. They're horrible. So anyway.
So Donna Sue says hi. Donna Sue's my
big hi, Donna Sue.
She says hi. She hates that she's not on this evening. She said you're fabulous.
Thank you.
Which is true.
Thank you.
She's not just saying that. So can I ask you about a moment, one of my favorite parts of one of your shows. I think it was the first. I don't know if it was the first one, but anyway, well, I'll say the part. You'll know what I'm talking about. You're in the market. You're in the market, and the girl with the chicken. Can you tell the chicken story for me, please?
It's in episode 1, and I had just come to San Francisco for the very first time from New York, and it was February, and it was beautiful weather, and I thought LA had beautiful weather, and San Francisco. When you live outside of the States for a long time, you forget. I guess I thought like Seattle had freezing colds. I thought Seattle would be like Maine. I thought San Francisco would be like New York. I thought there was going to be snow. And so I didn't have the right clothes. So I was very thrown by the fact that the weather, if I had gone to LA, I would have expected it to be warm, because I think of that as Florida when you are in the England perspective.
Right.
So I go there bundled up, and then I just, dressed like a complete slut for the week that I was there with the stuff I would have worn under everything else. But while I was in San Francisco, I just was overwhelmed by actually the Tenderloin, which is still the neighborhood I live in now. But San Francisco was a lot. And I remembered I'd seen drag queens. I mean, drag queens in London, there were the people that the drag scene in London was really, really varied and a big, huge influence to me. And I love that RuPaul was actually a neighbor of mine in the East Village. But I love that RuPaul took the series to England. And I would love to see it go to Australia as well, because they have a whole other drag in the trans world now has a whole other thing deeply embedded in their culture that's very different from here. But you just sort of saw, the whole gender queer thing I'd never heard of. I mean, the only reason to be a drag or trans was to look like a stunning woman. And so anything outside of that it's just challenging. This is the late 80s too. Yeah. And so anyway, I'm on the bus coming home, kind of recovering from everything. And there's a farmer's market that's literally now, I mean, I'd never been there at the time, but it's 3 blocks away from where we live. And at the farmer's market, there was, it was beautiful, it was warm and everything. And then suddenly the bus slammed and like everybody went forward. And what had happened was one guy had chased another guy out into the street. And then when he caught him, he would, I guess if you steal anything from them, they'll beat you with whatever it is. And it was potatoes, which are cheap, but they can really fuck you up too. So that was happening. And then at the next, hey, Lisa Golden, then at the next stop, I saw an Asian girl get on, and she had a live chicken because they still sold. They may still. I haven't been there in a long time. They were selling live chickens at the farmers market at the time, and the bus driver was telling her, "You cannot bring that on because you can only bring like a seeing eye dog or something like that." Because you had people that had boa constrictors and wanted to like bring them on the. You can't bring animals on. So the chicken was like totally alive. And she was not saying anything. And she was. I didn't know what a tweaker was. I'd never seen a tweaker. We didn't have tweakers, and we didn't have tweakers in 1989 in England yet. At least none that I saw. But she was very spazzy, and he said, and I was like, she can't speak English, which is a super fucking racist thing to like assume because she's Asian. But I mean, I think she was just trying to think of how to respond. Because when she did talk, she was like, she talked like Courtney Love. She was totally like an American boy. She's like, "Don't do this to me. Got to get this chicken home," and whatever. And he was nice, but then she just stood there, and I was like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" I mean, now you live in San Francisco. It's crazy coming at you from 50 different directions every single time you leave the house. But I didn't know that then. I wasn't used to it. And so she just cranked that chicken's neck right at the fare box. And then she went to go sit down. And then I was sitting there and she was sitting down and like the chicken's going like this. And I remember thinking, how many fucked up things have I seen in just the last few hours? And then I remembered thinking, I should move here. and I did. And that was sort of the moment. I just remembered thinking, I don't know as much as, because you live in New York and you think, oh, you think you fucking know everything, you know, whatever. You have that in all kinds of places. Same thing in London, San Francisco has it too. DC, yeah, I'm sure. It was a good move. The city's been incredibly kind to me, and it's still home. It's changed a lot. Cities are changing. I mean, you're not in a city. You're in a suburb.
Yeah, I live outside. I do.
Yeah, but I think suburbs. See, I don't know if suburbs are changing. I don't know that they're changing or how they're changing. I just know that cities in my lifetime went from these really urban places where artists lived because it was really inexpensive to like the polar opposite of that.
Yes, and it's very opposite of that in DC.
Okay. Yeah.
I've had to I do several different things, but one of the things that I did was I would drive the kid. A friend asked me, well, I got some kids from Oklahoma coming up there. They're going to be working as interns. Can you kind of show them the ropes and, get them to the grocery store? They got there, they decided they're not bringing their cars because it just didn't make sense. And but then they realized, okay, well, we're going to go to the grocery store. And okay, we're going to be walking, so we're going to have to take a bag or have to be selective. They're used, because everybody in Oklahoma is a prepper, so they're like thinking, we go to the grocery store once. So then what we did, I finally was like, okay, guys, because they're like, the stuff in the city is expensive. So like, I loaded them up. Yeah. I drove them to the Costco or the Walmart, wherever. And then they just went ahead and we just loaded me up. I dropped them off. And then they got accustomed to that. And then I was like, guys, I'm too busy for this these days. And so they had to learn how to just make do with their little reusable bag that they could throw their items in. Decide what you like. Decide what you can afford.
I like how you change. I mean, I was a city person from the get-go. And I mean, now that I realize you know Baltimore a lot. I mean, East Baltimore it's different now, but I mean, it wasn't the Inner Harbor where it is now. I mean, that was weird. That was the place that was the place to get murdered.
That still is from what I
really? The Inner Harbor?
Yeah, when I go there.
I mean, there was like lofts and condos. My mother has an apartment there on Light Street.
Well, there's part of it, if you go down by where the boats are. So when you where the boats, that's still scary. But just across the highway. Okay. It's gotten very posh, and I'm like really surprised. Yeah.
But when I've been there, it's been very, very posh. And that seems to be the way of the city, is that it's become unaffordable and that kind of thing. And if you have kids, you kind of move out. You have to move out of the city at a certain point.
Like this, like we. But we love it. The neighborhood that we're in, it's just breathtaking, and I love the maritime feel to it.
Okay.
I love the boats, and the culture is really interesting. Like they're just a different breed. Southern Marylanders they're like this cross between Midwestern type people with the similar attitude, right? With the New England type, like they took New England and Midwesterners and went like this and gave them a really cool flag they put on everything, and crabs, lots of crabs. Bad ones.
The first time we had Maryland crabs, David said, "Are they going to wash the sand off of them so we can eat them?" Donna Martin's here. I love her. Love her. Actually, she was the first good review I got in New York. Or not first good review. Make it sound like I got terrible reviews. No, she was. first review, but it was a good review, and it called me an actor, which I was like, I kind of thought of a performer because I'd fronted bands before, and I sort of like this musician who was sort of venturing into stand-up comedy and stuff. But she said I was an actor, and I remember thinking, wow, like somebody in New York calls you an actor. That's an acting teacher whose mother was an actress and her father was also in theater as well. But I love her. And then we found each other on Facebook years later, and we've been friends for a really long time now. Where was I? Oh, I wish I had learned. I don't know much about Maryland outside of Baltimore, because when you're a kid, you just kind of, we're talking about this, you tunnel up to where you are and you know where you are and that's it. And then when we moved to Michigan, I just lived to spend the summers back in Baltimore, where I had 350 cousins and where you had a birthday month. I remember once my sister saying, "How dare you do something like this to me on my birthday month?" And I was like, "Your birthday's in May, and it's like the middle of April." And she's like, it's like a month. It's not the calendar month. It's like a month before and a month after. So it's actually like an 8-week period around your birthday where no one can fuck with you. And how that started is just the families were too big to get together in one place. And so you'd go over with your Zia, with your Zia Mary's kids at one point, and then another thing. And I mean, like on my father's side, I'd go to Thanksgiving and there was an entire room with just pies in it.
Just pies?
So, yes.
Awesome. That's my place. You're my people. So, and we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to ask you now in front of everybody, will you come back on soon?
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. I'm thrilled to be one of your first, and I would love.
I also want to ask you one other thing about Prozia and her. She ran Baltimore's first gay bar. I want to hear about that.
Oh, Concetta.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Prozia right. Prozia is my granddad. Okay, now I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Prozia is a grand. That's your grandmother's sister, great aunt. I think you say in English. My great aunt. Yes, my family ran Baltimore's first gay bar, which was Pepper Hill, was run by my great aunt Concetta and her then husband, Victor Lance. She later moved out to Hollywood. She was a Ford model, but that was the first gay bar John Waters ever went to. And he wrote about it in one of his recent books. But my aunt Concetta is apparently, that's too weird of a name, and I know they know each other. It has to be named after her. Yeah, she said he named a character in a movie after me, but she never said. And sometimes she called herself Connie because they wanted you to have a real Anglo name in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And so then I saw Female Trouble and in London, which is so weird to hear that Baltimore accent is very specific. And New Orleans accent is very similar. So I'm in England and I'm hearing everybody that talks like my cousins, which you never hear on TV, let alone in the movie theater overseas. And everybody's, no, I'm not going down there. And so you're hearing that. And then one of Dawn Davenport's friends is named Concetta. And so I was like, it wasn't modeled on her, but it was named after her. And so that's cool. So that's her. She ran a gay bar, and they had a massive riot. The situation, as I understand it, is that if you were gay in D.C., this is before Stonewall. This is the mid-'50s to about 1964, so right before I was born. And if you were gay and in D.C., you went to Baltimore because you didn't go out in D.C. because you couldn't, everyone worked in politics. It was too volatile. You were a security risk. And so they would go to Pepper Hill, and they started to have raids. And in one of the photos that I found, there's a raid, and the police come in, and they took everybody into vans and printed their name in the paper, and they all would lose their jobs. And this happened more than once. And in one of the pictures that I have, I've posted on Facebook at one point, you're literally looking at about 150 people going like this or trying to have their back.
Right.
And Connie Concetta, she was right in front, and she positioned herself in the lights, and she did her good side. And I remember thinking, every time Pride comes around, I think like that's what Pride to me is. Pride is beyond being gay. What's that?
Was Conchetta gay?
No. Oh God, no.
She's just
nope.
She's just like people.
She smoked pot every single day from like 1947 till the day she died. I remember when she was in the nursing home. She said,
"Nursing home."
Yeah, she was in the nursing home, and her son would come with her joints, and she's like, "They wheeled me out to the far side, and they went bananas." These fucking squares. So anyway, but yeah, she did that, and so to me, I always thought Pride meant turning your face into the light when everybody was turning away into the dark.
I feel that. I agree with that, and even though, I think we've all had our racy, edgy college moments, but even though I really don't understand the gay perspective, I would imagine it to be that way for sure. Yeah. So you already promised you'd come back on, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll close. But okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with everyone before you part?
Really quickly is something that I'm really trying to brainstorm with some comics and writers is I'm really interested in the mental health effort that's going to be inevitable from this. We don't know where things are going to go health-wise. A lot of people feel helpless because you're supposed to stay home, so you can't go volunteer, you can't, this or that. I'm trying to provide the sort of funny, quick stories and content that get people through this. Because going back to when I started Facebook, I would get messages saying, I had a miscarriage and you were one of the things that got me through. And I've had other messages. I've had a lot of messages like this. And it's hard to say because it sounds like you're tooting your own horn. But the point is that this is a way that we can help with the mental health effort. And what I'm trying to do is really see what works, because sometimes really serious stories resonate, but in general, I think you kind of want to avoid that because
get it.
Right. And I think Tiger King helped me think about that. Tiger King was like a quick drug for that because it was so absorbing, and that's what we needed. But ultimately, it's terribly sad and terribly tragic. And
I will. Sorry, go ahead. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, people were still in shock from what was going on, and it was 7 hours. That's what I heard over again. It was 7 hours relief, and I was thinking, okay, well, we can't just do Tiger King forever,
right?
But it's not really the time to get into The Handmaid's Tale, maybe, because it's kind of dystopian, But what will get us through this? And so I feel like I get these messages, and I started to get more as it happened. And so that's one thing I'm really trying to be passionate about, is trying to what's the content, what's the things to read, the things to do that can get people through that can't. And then of course reaching out to people. And then on Facebook, I've been trying to make a point of doing the voice messages. Hearing the voice, what?
David, he came flying by.
He does. But yeah, I'm that's something I'm kind of writing about and kind of brainstorming with a bunch of people. I don't have a name for it yet or something, but that's something I really would like to help with.
I agree with you, and I think I would love to talk more about that with you too sometime. Maybe we can bring it. And I will say, it's funny that you said that about people reaching out to you over the years. There was a time where, because when my ex-husband went into the mental hospital, and I'm calling it a mental hospital. Sorry, I need a better word for that. Yeah, he went into healthcare. He was there for a very long time.
Okay.
Some of the things that kept me going was the funny things you would do, but you were
never told me that
serious content, and I was living in serious content, and you were taking your serious content and kind of laughing about it a little bit, and so that was helpful for me to it's that whole you can't make this shit up thing. It was that, and I was like, yeah. And that's what you guys, all of you, all of you brought a lot of solace to me through comedy and laughter at that time. So I do appreciate that about you.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's always been the end game, is not to, that's why it wasn't singing is about me and about look at me and I'm talented and whatever. And I've always thought there was something, I couldn't put my hands around it or wrap my mind quite around what it is. But it's like, that's what I like, is I like that you can have the power through a story to get somebody through and to make someone remember that they can survive horrible things. That's what I think we really need now. I recently wrote a story about a minor funny humiliation. My mother basically showing up to my white school in Florida, where I already lived on Boo Boo Boulevard, dressed like if Teresa from the New Jersey Housewives, shopped at Woolworths, basically. And that destroyed my already very tenuous social life in my Florida high school. And I think so many people said that just got them through, and so it's a little bit of the Tiger King thing where it's compelling enough to snap them out. But I mean, I wasn't showing them animal cruelty. I wasn't really taking them to hell. It wasn't a terrorist attack in the story. And so it reminds them of how you can survive things and how things that seemed like the end of your life at the time can be laughable later. And that's what people need to be reminded right now, because we don't know where we're going.
Right.
So that's one thing I'm really feeling passionate about and hoping it happens. If I have anything to do with it or not, it doesn't matter that much to me.
Right. I think you're definitely on point, and I think that is a good direction to go. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you,
Enzo, because I always do. And he said he promised to come back on. So if you didn't get enough of him, we will get more of him later. Oh, wait, we got one thing. Lisa Golden come back on and said, absolutely. I share to a private Facebook group. We snap stories that help each other.
Great.
All of us, a more serious tone, but filled with hope. I love it, Lisa.
That's great. Right. You can contact me. Y'all can friend me at Enzo Lombard on Facebook, but be ready. I mean, I'm a lot. Let me now, I'm a lot.
Not friend Enzo. Grandma Hazel, I'm telling you, don't.
And then the book, if you go to Amazon and you search Enzo Lombard, I'm the only thing that you'll be able to see the Louisiana Fairy Tales book if you want to buy it. And I believe the ebook is on for $3 if you're an ebook person like me. My eyes are bad. I can't read a regular book. So the ebook's like $3, and the actual book is like, I think it's $9 or something like that. So, yay! Okay.
I love it. Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much, honey.